Hello, BookTube. One of you called in yet more store credit at the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston. They're a great used bookstore in the heart of downtown Boston. They're a home away from home for me. I go there a lot. I have for a very long time. And although I have rule number one on this channel that says don't send me a book, don't do it. No matter how much you love the book, and no matter how much I talk about books on this channel, don't send me a book. There are loopholes to that. One loophole is that, of course, you are free to send me ebooks. You send me as many ebooks as you want. And another loophole is you can send me the means to get books. you can call the Brattle Bookshop and say, I want to give Steve some store credit. And a number of you have been doing that in the last month, and it's been really, really touching. It's really, really touching. And it, to walk in the door of the shop and be told, your visit is free. The Brattle isn't all that expensive anyway, but that's just icing on the cake. The Brattle isn't all that expensive for me because I do a great deal of my shopping in the outdoor sale lot next to the shop. The shop is great, and it's crammed, and it's constantly overturning its stock. But next to the shop, there's a gigantic sale lot, thousands and thousands more books for $1, $3, and $5. And today I was there first thing in the morning, and it was bitterly cold with 250-mile-an-hour wind gusts. It was just ridiculous. It felt that way anyway. It was inhospitable, like it was the middle of winter, even though we're only a few days away from April. And since I was told that and got to smile, and I read the credit slip, so thank you very much, the one of you who sent it, who called it in. I cannot thank you enough. And since that was true, I got a pile of books. Now, I know some of you wags will be saying, well, wouldn't you have got a pile of books anyway? Yes, I would have. And my defense of myself when you raise that point is to say, zip it. So I have a pile of books that I want to show you, and the first batch of them are mass market paperbacks. The first one of which is an old Signet classic. I once had this whole set, and I don't anymore. Signet Classic, a long time ago, 50 years ago, did a set of mass market paperbacks of Shakespeare. And they were great. The whole series had one short preface about Shakespeare. That preface was the same in every volume. Then each individual work had a long introduction of its own that was, of course, dedicated to it. Then you get the play with tons of footnotes, and then you get a ton of material in the back. They were like little Norton Critical editions of each Shakespeare play. A they were done for students, they were done for schools, but as so often happens, they overshot the mark in terms of quality. There was a tremendous Shakespeare series. You could do a lot worse than for this to be your Shakespeare collection. And I have one for Hamlet, and I have one for Henry VIII, and I found one for my favorite Shakespeare play, Julius Caesar. This is what they look like. This is what they all look like. This, of course, has been battered, but I checked, and it is not highlighted or footnoted. It's completely clean. And it will be a joy to have this and to go back to it all the time. Can never have enough Shakespeare as it is, but it bothers me that in some purge of books, mass market paperbacks in particular, over years past, I got rid of all of these. That bothers me. I shouldn't have done that, especially considering I can recall countless hours spent just in Shakespeare's company, but through these books. So they've earned a place in my permanent library. But I found Julius Caesar, and that's good. I now have three Shakespeare plays that mean the world to me. Then we'll do the other four mass market paperbacks, all of which are science fiction and fantasy. I've recently sort of pulled away from mass market paperbacks as a format just in general, although I think it is one of the perfect pieces of human technology that's ever been made in any field. They're a little inhospitable to me. They're not very durable. There's no room to take notes. The font mysteriously gets smaller every year. I don't know how that happens. As I stay a sexy 28-year-old, the type font gets smaller in these books every year. So I've gradually phased out. I used to have thousands of mass market paperbacks. They used to be pretty much the only thing that I had. And I phased them out over the last 2 decades into trade paperbacks and hardcovers. And then in this last 5 decades, that phasing has continued to ebooks that are perfect. They are a perfect iteration of a book. They don't mean to be, and they could be a lot better. The ebooks could be improved enormously, but a slate of an elegant, light, convenient slate of glass and metal that has the whole of a library on it. I was looking at that the other day. I was looking at one of my iPads the other day, one that I picked at random. And I opened up the various book apps, and when I was done, half an hour later, the one thought that was burning in my mind was, these are enough books for you to read forever. Aside from the new releases that come in the mail, in terms of a personal library of stuff that isn't brand new, which is 99% of the books here at Hyde Cottage, are not that one bookcase of new releases, of forthcoming books. There's one bookcase of that. All the rest of this is older stuff. And it's okay, it's fine. It's a big library, but there's a library every bit as big, every bit as varied, every bit as endlessly interesting in those book apps on that one iPad. And and you might say, well, it's you don't own those books, you're leasing them, really, they're not yours. That's not true. In a lot of cases, that's not true. These are side-loaded EPUBs, so no one can remove them from my device. Or you might say, well, yeah, but it needs electricity in order for you to read them. When's the last time you were away from electricity for more than an hour? Much less more than a day, which is how long it takes to run down one of those batteries. So that's not realistic either. My days of camping far away from humanity are long since over. They are not coming back, at least not voluntarily. If an EMP hits, then, well, I'll be forced to do that. But if that happens, I'll have a lot of bigger priorities than books. And you might say, well, the technology outdates. You can read a 600-year-old book, printed book, right now, today. If a museum will let you touch it, you could open it and read it. Who ever heard of a 600-year-old piece of technology that works? Well, we don't know. Do we, right? These things are in their infancy. But the iPad that I was looking at is 10 years old. And the book functions still work perfectly on it. So there's a phase going on here, but I decided long since that shouldn't be doctrinaire. Doctrinaire thinking tends to be wasteful thinking. So if I see a mass market paperback that I want for some reason or other, especially if it's free, thanks to the generosity of viewers like you, then I grab it. So this first one that I grabbed, I did as a placeholder because it was $1, because it was free, because it was store credit. I know that I want this, but I know that I want it in hardcover with a dust jacket, and I had it once upon a time. This is who did this? Borealis Legends was the publisher that did these years and years ago, probably 20, 30 years ago. They did a beautiful set of Fritz Leiber's Farford and Grey Mouser fantasy series. The Farford and Grey Mouser books, the stories, are incredibly good. If you're a fantasy fan and you don't know about them, and you might not, it wouldn't be your fault. They're not in bookstores. But if you're a fantasy fan and you haven't read them, you're missing one of the best pieces of epic fantasy that's out there. And years and years ago, this publisher did a set of these. I think there were 4 volumes total. And they conscripted the comic book artist Mike Mignola to do the covers and spot illustrations all throughout. The reason that they did that is because Mike Mignola had just recently done a graphic novel series of comic book adaptations of Farford and Grey Mouser stories that are great and that I have in 1-volume collection. But these are the books. There's a great, great Mike Mignola cover, and then let me show you. It's not very flashy what he does on the inside. It's little designs and spot illustrations. There we go. That illustrate the individual stories. And I grabbed this, even though it's a mass market paperback. It's kind of tight in the binding. I don't know how many readings this would sustain. But I grabbed this because as soon as I saw it, I remembered that once upon a time I had all 4 hardcover volumes of these. God only knows how expensive they are now. They probably are immensely collectible. I've been encountering that way too often with things that I suddenly realize that I want. That I idly look on eBay or Amazon and realize that they're a mortgage payment to buy. I got this for 2 reasons. One, as a placeholder to remind myself that if I ever see those hardcovers, I should grab them. Because I don't have the Farford and Grey Mouser books in the format that I want. That is the best format for me. That's the one I really like. That's the one I want. Why I got rid of it, I have no idea. Somebody probably made puppy dog eyes at me. Why I got rid of it, they would be in the little book room. They are the keeper set. I got this as a reminder of that, and I also got this because there's a chance that whoever dumped this at the Brattle had them all. This is volume 2. What are the chances that someone had only volume 2 of the paperbacks and not the other 3? Maybe I'll find the others. That would be great. Then this next one I got in a mass market, again as a reminder. The format, this is a very hokey, dorky thing, but the format that I want is a big trade paperback. I've had it in the past. I think I've hauled it on this channel, but I keep getting rid of it. Again, to big puppy dog eyes, because you people know right how to get at me. You know right how to get at me. Mainly because I tell you every day. If I were one of those cagey, artificial, ring-lit, professional YouTubers, you wouldn't have the faintest idea the levers that move me. As it is, you know exactly what kind of a big old softy I am. Probably I got rid of it to somebody. So I found the mass market paperback of it today, and I don't ultimately want the mass market paperback. I want the trade paperback. But I got the mass market paperback because that's better than nothing, and it'll do. And this is a weird misfire. This is Larry Niven, but it's not the hard science fiction for which he is famous. It's a fantasy novel called The Magic Goes Away. The novel that started it all. That is a Boris Vallejo cover. And the book, it came out in the 70s, I believe. When did this come out? Yes, 1978 as a trade paperback. And the book was notable because it is profusely illustrated. There are black and white illustrations all throughout this thing. Not just a set in the middle, but elaborate, beautiful black and white illustrations. All, of course, they're not behaving. They're not showing you. All throughout. Back right at the time when this book came out, right in the 1970s, there was this kind of idea, maybe a semi-concerted push for fantasy novels to be heavily illustrated. But that requires a lot, not least that you have to find is that a calicotheer of some kind? Not least that you have to find good fantasy artists, but also just the production cost. It becomes prohibitive. And obviously, I want this as a trade paperback because of the artwork. You know, the more detail I can get on the artwork, the better. I don't want to be pulling apart a mass market paperback to look at it. If I remember the story correctly, it's about a world where it's a familiar fantasy setup where there's a fantasy world where the magic is in short supply. There's a limited amount of it. It's not just that you can just keep doing stuff. And it's been misused as a kind of a natural resource and is going away. The magic is fading, and the hero goes on a quest to get it back. I remember it being just atrociously written, even worse than Larry Niven usually is. But if I'm going to have it, and I want it, definitely, I want it as a trade paperback. So this is just a spot holder. Then the next one, in perfect condition, as beautiful, as neat a condition as the day that it came out, which was a long time ago. This came out in the 1990s, I bet. Yeah, 1992. This is Magician Apprentice by Raymond Feist. With this terrific evocative cover there. And this is a fantasy author I've never really liked, but I'm doing the Belgariad Apocalypse. I'm reading the Belgariad with Becky from the Bookish Bryants slowly, a book a month, until we're done with the first Belgariad. And that got me thinking. I found The Magic of Recluse by Modesit at the Brattle. And those sorts of things got me, and also the Wheel of Time, Eye of the World. Found a mass market paperback of that, spurred by the TV adaptation. And it got me thinking about these first volumes in fantasy series from years past, from decades past, and giving them another try, seeing what's in them, and seeing what they do and don't do well. So I saw this. This is the first book in the series. I grabbed it. As far as I know, this only has 2 books. There's this, and then there's, what was this? The Magician Adept or Mage or something. I thought this only had 2 volumes. Maybe not. Maybe this just went on and on and on. Certainly Feist had a tendency to go on and on and on. And maybe I will like him more in an epic fantasy reading mood. And then there's epic science fiction, which thereby hangs a tail. Just recently, I was, or not recently, it's out now, a couple of months ago, I was up in Vermont with the Bean. Occasionally, the Bean and I pack a bag and go up to the very, very old house up in small town Vermont to visit Mark Richardson of the BookTube channel Richardson Read and his family. a couple of you have sent me emails saying, it seems like it's been a while. Aren't you free to do for a visit up there? Maybe so. But last time that we were up there, Mark and I, whenever I'm up there, even though he has thousands of books and I have thousands of books and we both have thousands of ebooks, we don't need to go book hunting at all, but it's so much fun. And it's extra fun when you go with another avid book hunter. And we went on a book hunting expedition. We went on a few of them last time I was up there. And one of the ones that we went on was a perfect demonstration of the luck that Mark has used book hunting. Just any of you who've seen his book hauls will know of the mountain of gems that he manages to pull out of nowhere in small town strip mall Vermont. Well, I got to see that luck firsthand because we went to Books A Million, which is a retail bookstore, and I love the shop. I just love the feel. I love the setup of it. I've often said to Mark when I've been up there in Vermont that if I lived up in Vermont, having Books A Million as my retail bookstore would be great. I wouldn't feel deprived at all for not having a big, sprawling Barnes & Noble. And the last time we were there, I thought, well, if you love this so much, and maybe it was a fun day, maybe it was a particularly fun day, then you should buy some stuff there. So I bought a few books, and one of the books I bought was the new mass market paperback of Battlefield Earth by L. Ron Hubbard, a gigantic 1,000-page doorstop of crappy science fiction by the charlatan and con man, L. Ron Hubbard. And the current mass market paperback of Battlefield Earth has a Frank Frazetta cover. That's no small thing. It's a lovely, moody thing. And so I was perfectly okay paying $8. That's the price of a mass market paperback these days, is $8. And we no sooner darkened the doorstep of a different place, of a charity shop, can't have been more than 15 minutes later, that Mark found the trade paperback size in perfect condition with the same Frank Frazetta cover for 70 cents, 50 cents, something like that. But when I got that, I hauled it on this channel. When I got that copy of Battlefield Earth, I remember saying, I am always a fan of Frazetta artwork. I think that's great. But the original paperback of Battlefield Earth had a particular appeal. And I found not the original paperback, but a later reprint that enhances that appeal. I found this at the Brattle Bookshop. That is the main character of Battlefield Earth. That is what the cover looks like, where you get the cowboy pants, the looming aliens in the background, some trees, a spaceship, the de rigueur spaceship. This is a later copy of that doesn't have any of those details. It just has the main character. This is pretty much exactly the mass market paperback I had in mind. And it's not completely wasteful because the Frazetta covered mass market paperback that I got in Vermont remained in Vermont. The Richardsons have very kindly given me and Frida our own room up in the old house. And perfectly thoughtful as well. That room has not only a separate entrance, if I ever wanted to use that, but it also, to the outside, but it also has lots and lots of bookshelf space, and it blessedly is on the first floor. There's no stair climbing at all. Just delightful. So, of course, I'm building a book collection there. Slowly but surely, visit by visit, I am. So that copy of Battlefield Earth is up there. And, of course, I need a copy here. One of the worst science fiction novels ever written. And then we have a bunch of hardcovers, and then we'll end with a large paperback. Well, the first hardcover is for my Books on Books bookcase. I got rid of a copy that I had of this just last year, I think. Again, somebody hit me with big puppy dog eyes, and I sent it to them. So I found John Gardner's book on writers and writing. John Gardner, the author, the novelist, and also the biographer of Chaucer. His biography of Chaucer got ripped to shreds and knocked all around the race course by my own critical brethren when it came out 50 years ago. But I love it, and I love his writing on writing. Just love it. Even though he could be an awful pretentious prick, as you can tell. he could be an awful pretentious prick. But his writing on writing is terrific. And this isn't just that. This isn't just essays on, what's a writer's job, the writer's mindset, the writer at work, that sort of thing. This isn't just that. This is also what I do, occasional writing on books. This is reviews of the books of his day that he did for various outlets for $150 a piece, that sort of thing. And I love them, absolutely love them. When you take a talent that big and that uncontrolled and you harness it to a very controlled exponent, The exponent is an editor who's going to pay you if you do it right. He's not going to pay you if you do it wrong. Your editor is saying you have 800 words, maybe 1,000. And your editor is saying that is conscribed by the sports section, by this ad for ladies' hats. This is how much room I have. So that's how much room you have. And those things don't care that you're John Gardner. So you will either do it in that size, or you'll do it at 3 times that size, and I'll just cut the bottom 2/3, and you can cry all you want. Or you'll give me something I can't cut, and I won't run it. I'll be really mad. I'll have to find something on the fly at the last minute to fill that space, perhaps by a very fast freelancer who will certainly help you out, but I won't pay you, and we will be enemies. If you do that sort of thing to a print editor, someone who has a print layout, that's the kiss of death. You don't do that. And so, unlike his book contracts, and especially his lectures, in that arena, John Gardner's big, boisterous talent was conscripted, and that makes a difference, often a wonderful difference. You can see it with, for instance, Anthony Burgess, another perfect example of a very garrulous, very talented writer, or Kingsley Amis, people who were forced to write for a stricture. I think it brings out a lot of good qualities in their writing. I love this. This is right on the top of the list to be dabbled in when my deadline is over. Then this next one is historical fiction. It's Napoleonic seafaring adventures, but it's a series that I didn't particularly like, and I met the author a couple of times. It wasn't all that wild. I liked him fine. He was a perfectly nice guy, but he seemed to very much consciously embody the old sea dog who has yarns to spin, and they'll take how long they take, and you're a kid, no matter how old you are, and no matter how many hours you've logged on the world's oceans, you're just a kid. And if the old salt starts to spin a yarn, you should probably shut up and sit down until he's done. I've had a great deal of experience with old salts like that, and I have no patience for them at all. None whatsoever. You want to tell me a great story? Fine. You insist that I have to be a cabin boy in order to hear that story? No. You might work on other people, but I have been in green water storms in the North Atlantic too many times to be taught that way about the ways of the water by any old salt. And that's how this author struck me. And maybe that bled over into me not particularly liking his novels. It's a very Hornblower-esque, very Patrick O'Brian-esque thing where he follows one character through all the stages of a naval career. Very standard template, still can be done really, really well. Alexander Kent does it really well. But if I had seen a copy of one of these authors' books, I would probably not have given it a second look, except apparently the UK hardcover editions have an innovative design. This is Julian Stockwin. And these feature, what is it, John Kidd? Thomas Kidd. They follow Thomas Kidd from when he is a midshipman. That's the standard form of these things, is that you see the character as a midshipman, you see him as a lieutenant, you see him as a captain, you see him rising in the ranks. And this book is simply called Command. I assume it's when Thomas Kidd takes command of his first vessel. And this is what the UK cover looks like. This is the UK cover of Command. And suddenly, Julian Stockwin is interesting me. And I couldn't help but notice on the back cover that that's what all of the UK editions look like. So those of you who go to your charity shops in the UK and often see these things now know what you have to do. Those of you who are right here in America or elsewhere and regularly trawl the bowels of the Ethernet for ebooks for Steve now know what you need to do. I want the whole of this series in one particular cover design. This is just Command. This is far from the first book in the series. I will just have to hope that this makes sense to me, because I want to read it right away. I don't want to wait until someone has provided me with the other books in this series. The American copy have no people on the cover at all, and that's okay most of the time, but I want to get to know Thomas Kidd. So I grabbed this, but I now want them all. This Brattle Hall had a lot of that in it. A lot of placeholders or reminders to get whole things. A lot of calls to holy grails. I'm never going to find those Mike Mignola illustrated, Mike Mignola cover editions of Farford and Grey Mouse. I know that. I never am. There's an outside chance that I might get the other mass market paperbacks, but I will never find the hardcovers for less than a mint. But these? Entirely possible. It's now your job to make that happen. Then another hardcover with these have these. A lot of these have these plastic library covers on them. That's great. That's really great for me. This is David Howarth, who's one of my favorite historians, and this is his book on Waterloo, on the Battle of Waterloo. He did a book on the Norman Conquest that I just love. He did a book called We Die Alone that's an underrated classic of modern war. And a bunch of other things too. One on the voyage of the Spanish Armada. And I don't know. The aforementioned Jason Harrigan may wince a little at this. There's nothing about the Battle of Waterloo that Jason doesn't know. And he might think that this is a little too general, a little too beginner level. Certainly I have read, very detailed military history monographs on aspects of the Battle of Waterloo. But I will take a general account if it's written by an author I really like. And I love this author. So I grabbed this to reread. And then this next one is also a reread. This was high on my list the year that it came out. I believe that it was recent enough so that we knew each other, right? 2017, yeah. So we were talking about this. I praised it. I was intrigued by it when I got the advanced copy. I think I hauled the advanced copy on this channel. I was intrigued by it. I read it. I was blown away by it. I sang its praises. I trumpeted it from the rooftops to every critic who would listen to me and plenty that wouldn't. I wrote about it myself. It made featured prominently on my year-end list of the best books of the year, and I got rid of it. I got rid of it, I think, because once again, somebody made little, puppy dog goo-goo eyes at me that they really, really wanted it, and I thought, the Brattle will provide. I'll send the copy that I have, and the Brattle will provide, and the Brattle did. So I'm not wrong to do that. It's just a little bit frustrating when you reach out your hand to grab something and it's not there because you sent it and the Brattle hasn't yet provided another copy. This is Jonathan Eigg, E-I-G, and it's his biography of Muhammad Ali. That has nothing on the cover there, just his ticket to glory. That is the spine. This is the hardcover. I have no idea if I'm blurbed on the paperback. Probably not, since this got reviewed everywhere. I thought this was terrific. Just terrific. I went into it a little worried that it would be a Saint's Life, and it's not. It's admiring, but fully detailed about all of Ali's shortcomings. So that was great that the Brattle really did provide. I just had to wait long enough. I'll clean it up a little. I noticed that the acetate, these plastic coverings on a few of these, this and the Waterloo book, I'm glad the plastic covering is there, but the plastic covering has done its job. It's pretty dirty on a couple of them. So they'll need to be just thoroughly wiped down with soapy water and whatnot. And then the last thing that I got is a trade paperback of a larger hardcover that I have here already. I got the trade paperback just because, well, first it was free, and also I'm the only person who's going to be looking at it on the sale lot and want it. And having the trade paperback is much lighter. It's much more convenient. And this is something I don't think exists as an ebook. This is Books of the Century, and this particular trade paperback was owned by an a-hole before it came to me, an a-hole named Mike, who used permanent magic marker to put his name on the front cover. Fortunately, I have a whole book of dinosaur stickers for exactly this purpose, so I will cover up a-hole Mike's name right away. But what this is a slightly larger, I don't know if you can tell, but it's an odd size. It's wider than a normal book. And it's the New York Times Book Review. From its earliest days to the 1980s, I think is when this came out, or the 1990s. 1998. So, and it's got Barry Moser illustrations all throughout. So there's him again. I don't want him to be the only one that I show you. Let's find somebody else as well. there's a very young Christopher Isherwood. Barry Moser did all of those illustrations all throughout this thing. So it's a lovely production. And this is just a collection of New York Times Book reviews from the earliest days when they were very short and were unsigned to later on when suddenly reviewers started to be well known on their own with their own names. and their names start to recur, and you start to notice whose reviews you like versus whose reviews you don't. And that makes this just an adventure for someone like me. This is, I mean, not the New York Times, but this is my profession. It's my whole life is book reviews for an audience, usually a paying audience. So this book is the greatest tribute to that profession that's ever existed. There are books about book reviewing, but this is a book of book reviews. And almost from the beginning, the New York Times Book Review is one of the most influential book reviews in the world. It is now the most influential book review in the world, but that was true for a long time. You can go back 70, 80 years. You can go back to the 1920s, the 1930s or 40s at the very latest, and you know already that the writers at the Times know that they're writing for something that has clout, that they're writing for something that is going to get noticed. And that is still true. This is just a joy. I will put a velociraptor of some kind over Mike a-hole name, and then I will just have this book. Great, I'll have the trade paperback of it. And that was my trip to the Brattle. On a freezing cold, a giblet freezing Monday morning. But fully subsidized, once again, by the nicest people anywhere on YouTube. This is the strangest parasocial relationship anywhere on YouTube, and it's the nicest people. You people are so nice. Imagine calling in credit to my favorite bookstore just because you know that I haunt a place like fish smell. I cannot say how grateful I am. This is it for today. I will certainly go back to the Brattle the next time one of you coughs up credit, because I could go every day. There have been many times in the past where I went every day. I could easily go every day and get a stack of books every day. I'd be up to my ham hocks in them, so I'm not going to do that. But I could go every day. I will certainly go every time one of you coughs up dough. But anyway, this is our Brattle haul. So we have Books of the Century in a trade paperback. We have the best biography of Muhammad Ali that's ever been written so far. We have David Howarth's study of the Battle of Waterloo. We have Command, Julian Stockwin's Command, in a UK edition that now makes me want a whole shelf of UK editions. We have John Gardner, unfortunately the late John Gardner, on Writers and Writing. And then we have a bunch of trade paperbacks. We have a very nice edition of Battlefield Earth. We have Magician Apprentice by Raymond Feist. It's the combination of hardcovers and mass markets that's giving us trouble here. There we go. We have The Magic Goes Away by Larry Niven in a mass market paperback. And we have Lean Times in Lankmar, Book 2 in the Farford and Gray Mouser series in this particular published edition with Mike Mignola illustrations. And finally, the Signet Classic, Julius Caesar, part of their whole Shakespeare line. So that is our Brattle haul for today. A very good Brattle haul, but probably the last one of this week. I don't think I'll be going back to the Brattle this week. But once again, it was tremendous fun. If my benefactor is watching, thank you very, very much. And I will wrap this up for now. That's quite enough videos from me for one day. But I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.